back line, I guess we think, for a couple games now, and the 2 clean sheets from those guys, a couple of young guys. What do you think about that defense, and how have they kind of progressed since they've kind of had to jump in?
The young guys in particular, or defense in particular, or
the young guys that have come in, like Alfaro, Delem.
Great. I've said this before, and I think they've proven it, that it's been one of our strengths throughout the years, that we've had depth in the back, and they've shown it again. And we have some extremely good veterans there, but we also have some younger guys, or some guys who maybe that's not their preferred position, but who can slot in, and we know exactly what we're going to get out of them. So even in the games that we haven't been able to get a shutout, I think we've done quite well defensively. But I'm really happy for the guys. Sometimes it can be a bit of an added pressure when you're not getting that many minutes, and you were asked to go down to LA, a tough spot against a desperate team with a lot of firepower. For us to hold a clean sheet there is quite an achievement. So super happy for the guys.
How important has it been for a guy, like a veteran guy like Gustav, to come in and to kind of be leading from the back there?
Very good. You see his soccer IQ is phenomenal, and I think that gives him the ability to play in multiple positions. I think that's always a good thing. Some players may not like it because you're never in one particular position, but I think for a team it's a great thing, because he's not just decent, but he's actually pretty good at a lot of positions. So it gives us some flexibility in terms of how we want to line up. Maybe depending on who we're facing and what kind of formation that they come out with, or what their tactics are, we might be able to change our tactics a little bit, because we have that luxury of being able to move people around. So it's great, and he's a good guy off the pitch as well. I'm my roommate on the road, and I'm glad he's part of the squad.
Steph, how important is communication back there, starting with you, and then to whoever's in front of you, and then the Aussie and Christian go down?
I think communication is vital in training, because it's actually one of the times you can try to communicate what I can see, and try to instill it and make it second nature for them when game comes around, because this weekend we're going to have 40-something thousand people. It's going to be difficult to communicate at times, right? So I think that's where it's important that in practice sessions where there isn't crazy fans around you, where you can actually communicate, that you do get points across. You do try to make adjustments you do try to have people see situations from different angles, especially as a goalkeeper, where I can see everything. It's important that I share that knowledge in practice, so that they're familiar with these situations when it comes to game time, and they can act upon it themselves. Obviously, I'm still going to try to communicate as much as I can. I'm not going to just sit there and be like, okay, guys, have at it. But sometimes, like I said, sometimes it's difficult in stadiums.
And so the adjustments they're making, whoever's in front of you, is real key. And I think that's what you just said. But is there the sound system, those guys that come in the middle of the box, or it's just come back and get whoever's open?
It's way more than just picking up people. It's keeping your keeping distances, proper distances from each other. We're talking about width. We're talking about up and back as well. Sometimes when you find yourself is when you're under a lot of pressure, the midfield gets pushed back almost on top of the 4 defenders, and then it leaves that 18 open for cutbacks for people to shoot from distance. So you need to have the proper distance there, and obviously if I have to communicate that to my back 4 for them to communicate that to our midfield, it takes a certain process, and sometimes you don't have the luxury of having that extra time. So if we can practice that in practices, and Tony or Gustav or someone can sense that on their own now, and have a quick shout to Aussie, it's eliminated, it's done. So I think communication is during games is when something maybe has broken down, or you see some danger. We would prefer that we all know exactly how to deal with every position perfectly, which obviously doesn't happen in advance. But again, that's why I can't emphasize enough to really use practice situations to try to get better in those situations.
And how important is a secondary defender help? You know what I mean, in all the situations. If I'm marking him, but he's coming in to help, and how important is that secondary help?
Absolutely. Gaps. That's what I'm saying. Width-wise, gaps have to be the proper size. They can't be too stretched out. People have to be connected. You know, where do you push a guy? You know, Alessandrini is a left-footed guy who likes to cut in. You might not want to give him that inside, and if he does, we have to have the left center back be close enough to go and help out. These are all things you scout ahead, you're aware of, and again, I think sometimes on the practice field, we know what the opponent that we're about to face, what they have. So these are things we can work on in terms of communication during that week. Alessandrini's cutting in. If Joven lets someone in training cut in, I'm going to let him have it. So these are all things you can kind of get started in training so that when the game comes around, we're all on the same page.
Speaking of scouting, what kind of team are you expecting in New England coming in this weekend?
I think they have some decent size, some decent service. So for us, again, I think if we can eliminate service coming into the box, that would help us tremendously. So we're going to be working on communication with our outside backs to get them to close down the cross this week. And then obviously they have some guys who can finish. You know, Kamara has been a pretty good striker. And so we certainly cannot take this one lightly. I think we're at home, which we're happy to be, but we have to make that count. So we're going to want to dominate possession. We're going to want to dictate the pace of the game and take it to them, make them feel uncomfortable and get some goals.